On October 19, 2025, a gang of thieves stole valuable 19th century royal jewels from the Louvre Museum in Paris in a smash and grab robbery that lasted a mere 10 minutes. The most remarkable and daring heists are characterized by speed, efficiency, and creativity. Hi, you're listening to The Why in History. I am Ajay Kaul, and today we take a look at some of the most daring and remarkable heists in modern times. On Monday, July 19, 1976, just a few minutes before 9 a.m., when the bank formally opened to customers, the officers of the Bank of the Societe Generale in Nice, France, went to open the vault of the bank to release the cash for the daily transactions. But the vault would not open. It seemed like it had jammed. The locking system had jammed before, so there wasn't any cause for worry. A few drops of lube oil would do the trick. But on that day, none of those tricks seemed to be working, and the customers outside were getting impatient. So a support technician from the manufacturer of the vault was summoned to help open the vault. The technician went through his diagnostics process, and he observed that the locks were opening fine. It was the door that seemed to be jammed. By late noon, the bank management made the decision to drill through this door and fix the issue from the inside. By 3 p.m., a small hole had been drilled through this heavy metal door. And when the workmen peered inside, they had a startling discovery. The bank had been robbed. Within 15 minutes, the place was swarming with cops, including every important policeman in Nice. The world had just witnessed what would be termed the heist of the century. About $10 million had been stolen, mostly in cash, but some in gold ingots and unset jewels. And the thieves had left behind a message on the walls: without violence, without arms, and without hate. Indeed, they had pulled off this massive heist quietly and without a single casualty. From Nice's underground sewer system, the thieves seemed to have dug a 30-foot-long tunnel that led them into the vault. And immediately, the thieves were branded sewer rats. The mastermind of this operation was a 44-year-old photographer from Nice, Albert Spaggiari. The idea of robbing a bank got planted in Albert's mind after he read a book which talked about a bank being robbed and the robbers using the sewers as a way of getting into the bank. Subsequently, he opened an account at the Societe Generale, and one day, one of his friends who worked at the bank casually remarked that the vault of the bank did not have any security system around it. Apparently, its 1.8 meter thick concrete walls was supposed to be secure enough, so an alarm was not needed. The idea now became a possibility, and Spaggiari rented a lockbox at the bank. Since he had rented a lockbox, he was able to get access inside the vault, and once inside, he took a lot of pictures. Then he scouted out the sewers. But he got lost because the sewers in Nice do not have any street signs. So he went to the town hall, posing as a builder, and procured the drawings and the blueprints. Now he was able to determine where exactly to start digging to get to the vault of the bank. He needed accomplices, but he did not want to rouse any suspicions by hiring locals. So he went to Marseille and hired members of the mob. It was time to start the digging. For the next 2 months, the team worked every night digging the tunnel. They dug softly and slowly to prevent any loud noise which could rouse suspicion. They lugged in gear, lugged out dirt, and every morning blocked up the entrance to the tunnel. Finally, on Friday evening of July the 17th, as soon as the bank closed for the weekend, they moved in and pierced the final 18 inches of the reinforced concrete. And one of the first things they did upon entering the vault was to weld the vault door to its frame, so that if somebody tried to open the vault during the weekend, they had enough time to escape. And this was the primary reason the bank managers were unable to open the vault even after unlocking it on Monday morning. Spaggiari and his accomplices spent hours inside, rummaging through the various lock boxes, and finally escaping with the cash and the valuables. As decided prior, Spaggiari and his accomplices all went their separate ways. Spaggiari himself decided to break up with his wife and flee to the United States to live the high life. Now, Spaggiari was feeling very good, and he felt that after conducting the heist of the century, his opportunities were endless. So to get a job, he decided to go to the CIA. Yes, America's Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. He let the CIA recruiters know that he was looking for a job, and he shared with them that he was the mastermind of the heist of the century. But contrary to his expectations, the CIA showed no interest in recruiting a burglar. So they promptly called the French police to let them know that they had Spaggiari in their presence. But the French police were chasing higher priority criminals at the time, so they ignored this tip-off from the CIA. Spaggiari, meanwhile, decided to fly back to France to meet friends and family. But he did not know that two of his accomplices had gotten arrested and spilled his name to the French authorities. So he was promptly arrested upon landing. The mastermind of the heist of the century was finally behind bars. Wait, but not for too long. During a court hearing in 1977, Spaggiari told the judge that he was feeling hot and walked towards the window to open it to get some air. But as soon as he opened it, he jumped out of the window, landed on a parked car below, and hopped onto a waiting motorcycle, which was driven by an accomplice. Within a few seconds, Spaggiari had vanished. A massive manhunt was launched, but Spaggiari was never caught again. In 1979, the court sentenced him in absentia to life imprisonment. But by then, he was living freely under different identities. For 12 years, he remained on the run, using fake passports, wearing disguises, and even undergoing plastic surgery to alter his appearance. And while on the run, he wrote a highly successful book, The Sewers of Paradise, describing his heist. And in 1983, he gave a TV interview to French journalist Bernard Pivot from his hideout in Italy. Spaggiari died in June of 1989 from lung cancer at the age of 57. The police were never able to recover the stolen money. In February of 2003, the world witnessed the heist of the 21st century. The place, Antwerp, Belgium. The location, the World Diamond Center. On the weekend of February 15 through 16, 2003, a team of highly skilled thieves bypassed multiple layers of security to steal more than $100 million in diamonds, gold, and jewelry from the Antwerp Diamond Center in Belgium. More than 80% of the world's diamonds pass through the World Diamond Center in Antwerp, and as a result, it's a highly secure and protected area. And the area within the Diamond Center, that houses the Diamond Center vault is supposedly impenetrable. And even after you enter the vault, you will be faced with secure deposit boxes, which once again are very difficult to break into. The most effective way often to penetrate a secure area is by exploiting the loopholes in its security, and that most of the time are humans. And interestingly, the Antwerp Diamond Heist followed a pattern very similar to the Societe Generale heist of 1976. And the foundation for the heist was laid when Italian diamond thief Leonardo Notarbartolo was able to rent an office at the Antwerp Diamond Center pretending to be an Italian gem importer. This happened in the fall of 2000, and because he was renting an office in the building, he was eligible for a safe deposit box within the vault. And he took it. And just like Albert Spaggiari, Notarbartolo had unfettered access to the vault. Now that he had access into the vault, Notarbartolo spent about a year smuggling a camera in his bag and video recording the vault and the safe deposit boxes. He was basically using the camera to scan the security infrastructure within the vault. Once he had a clear record of the interior of the vault, in October of 2002, he returned to Turin, Italy to recruit his accomplices. So he has three primary accomplices: a professional thief with the nickname The Monster, a professional security system hacker going by the nickname The Genius, and the getaway driver nicknamed Speedy. And once he was back in Antwerp, Belgium, Notarbartolo went back to the building manager and asked for the floor plans of the building, stating that he was planning on expanding his business. The building manager over-obliged him, sharing not only the floor plans, but also the schematics of the vault area. And in the process, Notarbartolo had an amazing revelation. The vault was not being physically observed by security staff at night. Now the primary objective was to somehow hack into the multiple layers of security so these guys could get into the vault. And how did they accomplish this? 5 days before the heist, the accomplice, nicknamed The Genius, got into the building using Notarbartolo's access card. He badged himself out but stayed within the building. And at 8 p.m., after everybody had left, he got to work. And the first act was to place some cameras having a direct view into the locks of the vault so they could record the combination of numbers being used to open the vault. On Sunday, February 16, 2003, around 12:15 a.m., Notarbartolo and his accomplices moved in to start the heist. Heat and motion sensors were foiled using women's hairspray, which created a thin film on the sensors to block their detection. The combination dial on the vault was easily opened because the genius had been able to record the combination being used to open the vault. The keyed lock, which followed the combination lock, had its key in a nearby utility closet, which this group was easily able to break into, retrieve the key, and open the door to getting inside the vault. Now all the safe deposit boxes were lying in front of them, and they used a device called the nose puller, which essentially pulled out the key locks of these safe deposit boxes, leaving them wide open. And with the safe deposit boxes wide open, the group was able to steal 100 million worth of diamonds, cash, and jewels. And while they were escaping, one of them got an idea and went to the security office and removed all the security tapes that were recording this burglary. Now it was all up to their getaway driver Speedy to get them to the border with Italy as fast as possible, because at that time there was no extradition treaty between Italy and Belgium. But as they were rushing towards the border, Speedy started having a nervous breakdown and insisted that they get rid of all the evidence they had in the car like the tapes and other documents and paperwork, right away. So Notar Bartolo went out to look for a good spot to hide the evidence. But when he returned, he was horrified to see Speedy dumping the evidence right there, all across. There was not much they could do at that time, except let the trashed evidence stay where it had been thrown and get to the border as fast as possible. So Notar Bartolo and his accomplices were able to get past the border into Italy. And by the time the Belgian authorities discovered the heist on Monday morning, there was not much they could do. But in due course, the Belgian authorities were able to stumble upon shreds of evidence left behind by the escaping burglars on the outskirts of Brussels. Evidence that included Speedy's visiting card, a fake work order he prepared for Notar Bartolo, and a half-eaten salami sandwich. Because of the Notar Bartolo work order and the fact that Notar Bartolo's safe deposit box was the only one left untouched, the police were able to determine that Notar Bartolo was somehow connected to this crime. And surprisingly, he decided to come back to Antwerp a week later to tie some loose ends, and promptly was arrested by the police. And even though he did not rat out his accomplices, they were all arrested based on the different pieces of evidence the cops had on them. The monster was arrested because of the half-eaten salami sandwich, the receipt of which was traced back to him, and the genius was arrested based on the business card that he had left behind. But all four of them received relatively light sentences, between 6 months and 4 years. Why? Well, for starters, it was a non-violent crime. Nobody was hurt in the process. And secondly, the most important part, the stolen diamonds, cash, and jewels were never recovered, making it difficult to assess the true value of the crime. And for those of you who are interested, there's a Netflix documentary called Stolen, Heist of the Century, which covers the 2003 Antwerp Diamond Heist. Installation of metal detectors, mandatory baggage screening, and identity checks. Did these security processes for air travel get introduced gradually, or was there one incident that triggered them? It is the latter, and the incident was the D.B. Cooper hijacking of an airliner in November of 1971. On November 24, 1971, a day before Thanksgiving, a passenger boarded the Northwest Orient Airlines flight at Portland under the name Dan Cooper. It was a short flight headed to Seattle, Washington. Shortly after takeoff, while he was having bourbon and soda, Dan Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant which said that he had a bomb on himself. He then showed her the suitcase that contained the bomb, at which point the flight attendant went and informed the captain. Dan Cooper's demand? $200,000 in $20 bills and 4 parachutes. Getting the money and the parachutes ready took a few hours, so the flight circled above Seattle during that time. Once it landed, the 36 passengers were allowed to disembark along with 2 crew members in exchange for the ransom. Cooper now asked the plane to be flown to Mexico City with its 2 pilots, a flight engineer, and a flight attendant on board. But he had another demand. He wanted the jet flown lower than 10,000 feet at a speed under 200 knots. The captain was concerned that it would be dangerous to fly so low at that speed, but Dan Cooper insisted that everything would be all right. So it seems that he knew a thing or two about the physics of aviation. So while the pilots struggled to fly the plane at that height and speed, somewhere between Seattle and Reno, a little after 8 p.m., Dan Cooper did something incredible. He lowered the stairs at the back of the plane and jumped out with a parachute and the ransom money, and was never found again. The plane arrived in Reno, Nevada around 11:30 p.m., and the FBI agents were shocked to find D.B. Cooper missing. An FBI composite sketch was drawn from the witness statements, and a massive manhunt was launched to find him. Wait, did I say D.B. Cooper? Yes, I did. One of the newspapers reporting on the incident had a typo and published his name as D.B. Cooper instead of Dan Cooper. And the name stuck because D.B. Cooper seemed way cooler than Dan Cooper. The investigators were able to determine the time and location of the descent from D.B. Cooper and narrowed down on Ariel, Washington as the place where he had jumped out of the plane. But the manhunt yielded nothing, and the investigators began to wonder if D.B. Cooper had even survived that jump. However, 6 months later, an almost identical skyjacking happened, this time with United Airlines Boeing 727, where the hijacker leaped out of the plane somewhere near Utah with $500,000 in cash. But the FBI received a tip and were able to arrest Richard McCoy, an ex-Vietnam pilot, married with 2 small children. The money and a jumpsuit was recovered from his residence. But the FBI were able to confirm that he was not D.B. Cooper. But this led to D.B. Cooper getting a legendary status. The fact that Richard McCoy had survived his leap indicated that D.B. Cooper too had survived and was alive. And the FBI started receiving random calls from individuals claiming to be D.B. Cooper. On February 7, 1980, almost 9 years after the D.B. Cooper heist, a family of 2 stumbled upon 3 bundles of moldy cash on the banks of the Columbia River. These were turned into the FBI, and the serial numbers matched the ones stolen by D.B. Cooper. The total amount was $5,800. This was a shocking discovery. The money had been found more than 20 miles from the area searched by the FBI post D.B. Cooper's leap. But even more significant was the fact that the area had been dredged in 1974, which meant D.B. Cooper had probably come back to the area after 1974 to bury this money. Was he trying to provoke the FBI? With the name D.B. Cooper reaching legendary status, every year on Saturday after Thanksgiving, Ariel, Washington hosts a party in the honor of D.B. Cooper to pay tribute to the man who got away with it and in the process gave publicity to Ariel, Washington. The D.B. Cooper heist led to significant changes in airline security and aircraft design. Metal detectors were installed in airports to screen all passengers. Baggage screening became mandatory. Passenger scrutiny, especially on passengers paying with cash on the day of departure. However, most important of all was the installation of the Cooper vane, named after D.B. Cooper, on Boeing 727s to prevent the aft air stairs from being lowered during flight. And it is on that note that we end this section of the program. On to the quiz section. Question from the previous episode. What was the first commercial domain to be registered on the internet? Symbolics.com has the distinction of being the very first commercial domain registered on the internet. And since the website is currently active, it's also the oldest still functioning website. The website still maintains a simple style and capitalizes on the fact that it is the world's oldest website. So the answer is B, Symbolics.com in 1985. Question for the current episode. Which 17th century heist of a ship belonging to a rich kingdom is often called the heist of the 17th century? Is it A, Piracy of a ship belonging to Napoleon. B. Piracy of a ship belonging to the Spanish Empire. C. Piracy of a ship belonging to the Mughal Empire. Or D. Piracy of a ship belonging to the Ottoman Empire. Once again, which 17th century heist of a ship belonging to a rich kingdom is often called the heist of the 17th century? Is it A. Piracy of a ship belonging to Napoleon? B. Piracy of a ship belonging to the Spanish Empire? C. Piracy of a ship belonging to the Mughal Empire? Or D. Piracy of a ship belonging to the Ottoman Empire? The answer will be provided in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. And that's all we have in today's episode. We'll meet again in 2 weeks with another interesting and exciting episode on world history. Till then, stay safe and keep exploring the why in history.